It's that time of the show. We call it
Around the Movie Block with The Rock.
And what does Rocco have cooking for today?
I have a highly anticipated movie cooking for today. If you combine Alfred Hitchcock, who is considered one of the greatest thriller directors ever, and Spike Lee, you basically would get Jordan Peele, the former comedian turned filmmaker, who wowed us in 2017 with Get Out, which has become one of the most beloved and critically acclaimed horror movies in recent years. He has a new movie for out this week. It's called Us. It's directed by him and stars Lupita Nyong'o. In the plot of this movie, a family's serenity turns to chaos when a group of doppelgangers begin to terrorize them. So the thing that I should definitely point out right away is, in many ways, what's great about this particular movie compared to Get Out is that it's not quite as political, which was the signature style of Jordan Peele's filmmaking. Jordan Peele brought a lot of his socially conscious sensibility to the thriller genre, which you don't really see too much of in thriller movies. Thriller movies are usually movies that filmmakers, make to cut their teeth and to get a foothold into the film industry. But because Jordan Peele had already established himself in the world of comedy, he kind of brings a more artful sensibility to the horror genre, which we have not really seen in a very long time. But with this particular movie, there's an aspect to the lack of social consciousness that kind of weakens this particular movie. This movie, Us, is not quite as cohesive as Get Out. I think what was a strong point of Get Out was the fact that it had a cohesive point, that it was all about social consciousness. And this one, while it does have a social consciousness, it's not quite as, pronounced in this. It's more like a straight traditional horror movie. But it is pretty good, though. It's still very, very entertaining. It has a lot of, it definitely shows why Jordan Peele is a force to be reckoned with in Hollywood today. The fact that he has a comedic background definitely makes his movies not only thrilling and edge of your seat, but also have moments where it's also very funny. And I think that kind of comedic sensibility is important to the entertainment value of a horror movie. But it definitely shows that he's definitely deft at bringing both the comedic sensibility and a horror sensibility to this. However, the movie is not quite entirely cohesive, so there's aspects to his symbolism that kind of come off kind of random, and it doesn't have that sense of, you feel like there's a strong, thematic resonance with the movie that you had with Get Out. I think that with this one, it's a little more random, and it doesn't have that same sense of, sense that everything works in this. But, considering that most of horror movies have a fairly, kind of low bar and amateurish kind of bar to begin with, it's definitely still a really good horror movie, and it's definitely very entertaining. It's well acted. Lupita Nyong'o's the star, and she's been delivered very good performances for all her movies, and her being the lead in this movie definitely strengthens it to a great degree. And overall, I think it's definitely a horror movie that I would definitely recommend. And most horror movies can be very hit or miss, but this is definitely one that's strong enough that I think that people will really enjoy. And I think that it leads itself to still have a sensibility that I think most people who maybe are a bit put off by horror movies in terms of their level of quality, I think that there's much here that people will appreciate. I think that, like I said, to make a long story short, it's entertaining, it's artful, and it definitely has more substance than your average horror movie. So, it may have its shortcomings compared to the phenomenal first-time horror movie that was Get Out, but I think it definitely shows that regardless of that Us definitely shows that Jordan Peele is definitely a force to be reckoned with in the filmmaking world. So overall, I give Us 3 out of 5 stars. So thank you.
Okay, great job, Rocco.